new stuff, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. So I mean, I think with yourself, we might get to know a bit about your projects because I mean, you're quite happy to put that stuff on the net, aren't you? You're doing your
Mm.
patio at the
Yeah.
moment, so a lot of people see that,
Yeah.
and you're quite happy to share that. I mean, you share quite a lot, really, I suppose, don't you?
Yeah, probably more than I should, but I just do it. Don't know why, but I do.
So you've got this project going on at the minute because we've chatted about it before, and as I say, there's lots of pics going up on Facebook. It's looking good at the
Hmm.
minute.
Yeah, it's nearly finished. It's a deck, so basically a deck out the back of the house, wooden deck. And for years, I had this idea of having a wooden deck out the back um, of the house because before I built the deck, it was a pretty depressing sight. It was just a standard lawn and some cement blocks or paving stones, I should say, weeds, and it looked its age, and it was long overdue a makeover. You know what I mean? But I just never really got the energy, time, and focus to build the deck, which I had planned to do, in my mind at least. But of course, this year was the most different year of any year. And normally every summer we go away somewhere to the south of France or whatever and disappear for a few weeks and just get out of the country and chill and relax during vacation. But this year, of course, none of that happened. So it was a staycation. So I sort of decided, okay, I'm going to try and do this. And when I say I'm going to try and do this, that's exactly what I felt like. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos about guys in the US and UK and so on how to build a deck, and I got a lot of ideas from them, and then I researched some Swedish websites that sold construction equipment and lumber yards and stuff like that, and found some do-it-yourself guides for how to build a deck, the type of deck that I wanted to build at least, because I wanted it in line with the lawn, right? So, so with no plan in place, only ideas in my head, no plan, I started digging the hole in the grass,
Oh,
literally.
so you're not even like there's nothing drawn out. You just
I,
started.
I made I made I made a preliminary line to mark what I thought was going to be the space that should be dug out. So and it was less than what it ended up being. Um, so it was my estimate of what should be dug out, and I figured that I need to dig down about 20 centimeters or so, which is quite a lot. So it turned out in the end that I dug out 6.5 tons of muck uh, using nothing more than a spade and a wheelbarrow. So that took that took about 2 weeks, and in a way it was good that I did it with a spade and a wheelbarrow, because during those 2 weeks of digging it out, um, I was doing more research and talking to my neighbor who's done something similar before. And he says, "Well, what's your plan?" And I was like, "Plan? What's that?" So, yeah. So when he said, "Oh, what's your plan?" I started to put together a plan and started to estimate exactly the dimensions and how much wood I would need and how much gravel and stuff like that. So he was a great help with getting things going and building the initial frame. He helped me build the initial supporting frame.
So
Um,
that's so the idea behind that supporting frame, is that coming from him, or like some
yeah,
of the things that you'd researched online as well?
both. So the local lumber yard called Big Macs that I went to and bought all the wood from. They provided a blueprint for how to build the frame. So that was, the blueprint of, okay, this is how I'm going to do it, except the actual frame that I ended up building was totally different to that blueprint because that blueprint was for just a generic square shape. Do you know what I mean? And the decking space that I needed to do was 29 square meters, and it wasn't just a square. It was more like a rectangle with a sort of a smaller rectangle attached to it. So um, uh, so basically, after talking with my neighbor, and after he talked to a friend of his who actually worked in this type of industry. He was a carpenter. He basically said to us, "Well, if you're going to support a outdoor spa there in the corner, then you should consider having the frames closer than 60 centimeters apart." So the way we were building it was every 60 centimeters we put a frame um, plank down, and he said you should double that for anywhere underneath where the spa is going to be because these spas can weigh a lot, 260 kilograms when they're empty, and then when you fill them with 500 or 700 liters of water, it's going to be pretty heavy. So you want to have a solid support. So the one thing I learned from listening to my neighbor and also to this carpenter was you need to build a strong enough frame. So what we did, which was against the advice from the website, was we built the frame outside of the hole. And the reason we did that was so that we could strengthen each and every supporting frame plank um, with three really strong screws on either end. So that that frame that's underneath the deck right now, it will probably live longer than this house. I mean, if the house is blown down by a tornado, that frame will still be there. It's so solid. So we got in the end we got a crane to come over and drop it into place. It took 15 minutes. It was really cool.
Right. Cool. And so woodwork skills, because I've looked at some of the pictures. It
Hmm.
looks amazing, really, the way you've done it. Woodwork
Yeah.
skills, is it something you're comfortable with, or again, is this new?
I've done basic fence building before myself, and I wasn't afraid of picking up a saw or a tool or anything like that. But I basically learned on the job. So uh, having advice from someone who's done it before always helps. And literally the first few days, or actually the first few days, 2 days of building the frame, my neighbor Peter was here with me, and he was telling me, okay, you need to do it this way, and he was giving me advice all along. So with his advice, I was able to do it myself, right? So after I got the advice from him, I knew, okay, I'm doing this the right way. And he also lent me 3 books about how to do any sort of carpentry stuff. And in there was, building your decks and all that sort of thing. So between his advice, the 3 books which I just glanced through, and the YouTube videos and the websites, um, I think I got a lot of information overload, how to build a deck, and basically then, just like anything else, I learned by doing. So um, you get into a pace when you have to build a 29 square meter deck. You will learn very quickly because if you don't, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. I've put three floorboards down in the house.
Hmm.
That was complex for me. So to build something for, and I had to put a piano on top of it. So I was kind of worried that
Oof.
that was going to
Yeah.
be a problem. But this whole thing that you're supporting. I mean, it looks, like I say, it looks great. And is it almost done, or are you still you've done some bits around the pathway and stuff
Yeah,
recently, graveling all that?
it's well, that was the front of the house. So this is the back. The deck is at the back of the house. So The deck is nearly done. I have two more panels, privacy fence panels to finish, and these panels are, yeah, they're laborious in building them because we wanted to have the little slats in these panels to be very close together, and it gives a beautiful effect when they're finished because they're white and there's a very narrow gap between them. It lets just a little bit of light through, and it's great privacy. So I'm going to build the last two of them by hand on Saturday. That's the plan, and then the deck will be done, and then I can go and spend more money on things like the spa, the outdoor spa, and stuff like that.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
looking great. And,
Thank you.
you know, a lot of back-breaking work. I know, I can imagine that you've been absolutely shattered
Oh,
through the
geez.
process of making it.
It was a lot of hard work, a lot more work than I anticipated because, of course, I didn't do a plan until halfway through. So, and I'd never done anything like this before, so it really was a huge undertaking, but very enjoyable because even though it was really hard work, you could see the progress each day, and not only that, but it took my mind off normal life, working with computers and all that sort of stuff. So I was just focusing on getting the deck done, which was a completely different stress to the stress I'm normally used to.
Totally. I suppose I better introduce you now. Actually,
Yeah.
we're 12 minutes in and we haven't we haven't done anything yet. So people may not know who's talking. Um, so Niall Brady, thanks ever so much for taking part in the final episode of this just a couple of jerks podcast.
Mm. Glad to be
um,
here.
when I say yeah, it sounds like it. Mm. No, it's great. Final episode possibly of this season. So I'm taking a break. You're number 26, so we're half a year in
Yeah.
to these podcasts, which can't believe half a year has just kind of flown. So that's really at the start of lockdown. And I don't know for you, has it flown through since March this year?
Yes. I mean, it has. And it's been really weird. I mean, a really very strange year. I mean, it started off normally. Work was normal work. I was traveling December, January, here and there around Europe and stuff, visiting factories, doing my job, and everything was normal. I mean, of course, there was reports in the news about coronavirus and so forth, but nothing really hit home until mid March, and then mid March, the world was going into lockdown, and we agreed, the team that I'm on at work, we agreed that okay, we're going to start working from home now because there was so much, scare about it. But I mean, I live in Sweden, and Sweden did not lock down the country. It basically advised people, this is what you should do, avoid other people, and so forth. But it didn't lock down the country, which was nice. So we could still do normal things if you were so inclined. But what I did was I had no problem working from home. I just invested in my home office and made it a much more enjoyable place to be in terms of working. And uh, yeah, I've been working from home since mid March, and it's the new normal now.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're kind of used to it, aren't we? Really.
Yeah, yeah.
There's been a funny response to a bunch of adverts actually today on Twitter in the UK. You know, Dettol, the
Hmm.
disinfectant people.
Yeah.
They've kind of written all these things because we're kind of trying to go back to the new normal now, and people returning to offices, people returning to schools, and they've written this
Mm.
thing of like little points that we kind of you know we missed, and then people have been really cynical about it. So it's like
Hmm.
water cooler conversations, that sort of thing, and everyone's gone, uh, no, um, train delays, blah blah blah. It's that sort of been quite cynical in their answers, and we kind of used to just kind of working from home, and in a way, I mean, I've worked from home quite a lot over the last few
Mm,
years, and
mm.
I just find it more productive.
Me too.
Um, yeah, you can just get on with stuff, and you go into the office, and conversations happen. People, it just becomes that fact that you've got to commute there as well, and the
Yeah.
whole rush hour thing, and you just get on with it when you're at home and just focus more. And when you need that coffee break, you go and grab it. Okay, social interactions less, but
Mm.
I don't know. It just seems to work for me.
Yeah, but we work in IT, so for us, working from home is no biggie. I mean, we've been doing it for a long time, but not to this intensity. So it was the intensity that was different for me. Working 5 days in a row from home for months on end. So quite quickly into that process, I realized that my home office in inverted commas was not going to cut it. So I got rid of the old, I don't know, 13, 12-year old IKEA desk, which I hated anyway. It was really old fashioned and boring. And I went and got one of those up down desks, so that you can stand when you want and raise and lower. I invested in my home office and got some nice monitors and made it a really nice space where I can be productive and enjoy working from home,
Yeah, because
so
you
to
know
speak.
you're going to be there. That's the
Yeah,
thing, isn't it? You know there,
exactly.
and possibly
So
for quite a while still. I mean, has there been any kind of indication that you're wanted back in for a few days a week or
yeah,
anything like that?
so
Yeah.
I work for a global company called Tetra Pak, and they're fantastic. They basically do food packaging, and the slogan is to protect what's good. And not only are they protecting what's good in terms of the food packaging and the food that's they're delivering, but they're even protecting their employees. So um, what they've done is they've initiated this thing called Phase Two, where um, the employees can go back to work 1 day a week over over the period of a month, right? So we have been going in for a couple of weeks now. Um, every Wednesday, that's our allotted day. So I now travel to work every Wednesday, and then I work from home Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Hmm.
Um, but
So have they kind of changed the internals then to kind of socially
yes,
space out?
totally,
Right. Yeah.
totally. So basically, when you go in the door, the first thing you see is a station where you get yourself a mask, face mask, and also some disinfectant. So you disinfect your hands, you stick on your mask, and then you stand in front of a machine, and it measures your temperature, and it will give you a green light or a red light. So if it gives you the green light, you're safe to go in to work, and if it gives you the red light, you contact your boss and you work from home for 2 weeks. So I'm really impressed what they've done. They've changed how you sit in the canteen. It's they've done a huge amount to protect the employees, and I'm actually really impressed what they've done. So also when you go down and sit at your desk, um, the desks are basically it's you don't really have a desk, so you have an allocated room that you go to, and then you take a free desk, and that free desk, no one is allowed to sit beside it, right? So that desk will be yours for the day, but no one can sit beside you. So you're in the office doing your thing. And when you move around in the office, you have to put on the mask, which I think is very fair, and it gives a feeling that they're taking it seriously, which I like.
Yeah. And so are they cleaning down at the end of every day then? As you've kind of
Absolutely,
used that
yes,
space. That space would be used then by someone else on a different day.
yeah,
Is it allotted
yes,
on it? Right.
so,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I mean, are you kind of engaging in interaction a bit then,
yes,
more so on
of
those
course.
those days you're in?
Yeah, so I mean, my team members are in as well. The team members that work in Lund, at least in Sweden, because it's a global company. The team that I'm on is small, but it has members all around the world. So Um, at least the members that I deal with that work in the same building are there on the same day that I'm there. So that's nice.
Sure, sure. No, that's it's interesting how people are starting to go back. I mean, I've not had to go to any customer sites since lockdown's been easing. So
Mm.
I'm sure it's going to be different across the globe. But it sounds like they've got it down to a T almost, like straight away with what they've got going there. Particularly with the scanning for temperature and that as you enter. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was really impressed with what they've done. I mean, they really thought it through. And in fact, I was on vacation all of July when I was building my deck out the back. And the week before I was due to go back to work, I got a delivery from Tetra Pak. And so I thought, okay, what's this? A little box. So I opened up the box, and inside there was hand wipes, those sanitation ones, disinfectant. There was a really cool um, uh, ruler, one of those ones that you can extend. And there was a letter explaining, well, what's in this package and why. And it was like, welcome back. This is phase two. The ruler is so that you can, you know, visualize what 2.5 meters is, because that's the space, that's the distance you should be from other people. The wipes are to keep everything clean when you go in. Wipe the area that you're going to work at, and there was a face mask as well. So I mean, I it was a real feeling that not only are they taking it seriously in work itself, but they want to prepare you for this change before you come back to work. And I thought that was really, really well done. Really professional.
Yeah, definitely. And so you've been working with Tetra Pak for quite a while now.
Yeah, since 2009 as a consultant. And then they took me on full time 2013. So I've been there for quite a while now.
Okay, so initially you're in like as a freelance contract role.
Yeah, I was a consultant. So I was working for some other consultants companies, and they basically farmed me out to Tetra Pak. Pretty much full time, but I was basically employed by the consultant company.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they kind of not poach you. That's the
Mm,
wrong word, but you kind of became it in house effectively, yeah,
yeah,
with them at that time. So, because you're obviously not from Sweden, you're from Ireland originally.
correct.
Was that when you moved out then? At that time
No,
after being
no,
out in Sweden?
no. I left Ireland in 1998, came to live in Sweden with my Swedish sambo, which is the Swedish word for partner. And that was 1998, and we started living initially in Stockholm. So at that time, uh, back in those days, I was working for Dell Computers, um, and I was based in the Dell office in Upplands Väsby in Stockholm for 5 years. And as time moved on, we decided to move down to the south of Sweden, which was a warmer place to live, but also much cheaper in terms of getting yourself a house, accommodation, etc. Because if you want to buy a house in Stockholm today, you're going to need seriously deep pockets because the prices are just ridiculous.
So, what kind of price are you paying then? Is that a two-bedroom flat? What kind of is
In
it?
Stockholm,
Beyond London prices?
I would say it's probably like London. I mean, it's a capital city. It's all happening there, so they charge whatever they want, basically. So, so it didn't look like we were going to get ourselves a house there. So we decided, yeah, let's move down to the south. That way as well, we could be closer to the local family as
Yeah.
well.
And how was that change for yourself then? That's quite a big change, isn't it? Moving over to another country. Yeah.
Yeah, initially it was um, very different and exciting, and But I mean, Sweden and most of the Nordic countries, they learn English at school from a very young age, and English is pretty much their second language. And pretty much everyone in Sweden or Denmark or Norway can speak English fluently without any problem at all. So moving over here was very easy in terms of the language because everyone can speak English. But getting used to the cold and the long, long, long dark winter, that was a little bit tougher.
So hold on, coming from Ireland and getting used to the cold, that should be it.
Yeah, but I mean, okay,
It's a different cold though, yeah?
I mean, in Ireland, yeah, it's wet and yeah, cloudy and so forth, but it didn't feel as dark for as long as it is in Sweden, because in Sweden, Sweden is more north than Ireland, and the winters are just longer here.
So on the winter then,
Yeah.
so what's the daylight hours then? So
Um,
when's it get
it
dark?
Okay, so in the middle of the winter, it can get dark around 3 o'clock, just after three, and get bright at just before 8 in the morning. So I would be driving to work. I would leave the house at 7 a.m. usually to drive to work. So I'm at work at 8. And in the winter, it's dark pretty much the whole way. And then I arrive at work and it's starting to get bright. And by bright, I mean it's still dark. And you go into the office and then it's bright because you've got all those fluorescent lights blinding you. And you'd work until 5 or so, and then go out to your car and it's dark. It's dark. So basically, you drive to work, it's dark. You come home, you leave work, it's dark. The only time you see the sun or see daylight is on Saturday and Sunday. And yeah, usually you're quite tired then. But it totally makes up for it in the summer, because in the summer you get these really long days where it can stay bright until 10:30, 11 at night, no problem. And then the sun dips for a few hours and then it's bright again at like 2:30 or 3 in the morning. It's just amazing.
Yeah, so I suppose you're just starting to ease towards that. We're seeing the darker nights coming in here a little bit earlier already, and
Mm.
actually the weather's gone useless now. We've had our summer, so now we're in September, and that we've had the heat wave, um, and it's just gone depressingly autumnal. Which I like the autumn, but I'd like a bit more sun for another month maybe, just to see out the summer.
Yeah, it would be nice. I mean, I looked at the forecast and it looks like, I mean, summer is over. It's you get a little bit of sun during the day, but it's cloudy and sort of rainy, and I think it's pretty much the same over in the UK and Ireland at the moment.
Yep, it's gone horrible.
Yeah.
So which part of Ireland did you grow up in then, now?
Okay, so I was born in Dublin long time ago, and at the age of 3, my family or my parents decided to emigrate to Africa, to a place called Zambia. So actually, my childhood memories of growing up in Kitwe, Zambia, which was an amazing childhood. So I lived there for 7 years, had an amazing childhood, and then they moved back to Ireland, Dublin, in 1976, and then spent a year or so maybe in Dublin, and then moved back to where my mother was born, which is in Sligo. So Sligo is in the northwest of Ireland, and it's a beautiful place, surrounded by mountains, lakes, the sea. It's an amazing place, and I've gone back there every single year that I've been in Sweden, except for this year. This is the first year that I haven't. So yeah.
Yeah, my wife's parents, her mum's from Inniskillen, and we used to drive down the Sligo Road out of Inniskillen.
Wow, that's right. Yes, it's very, very close.
Yeah, but I don't think I've actually been to Sligo itself. I don't think I've been that way.
Well, we'll have to change that.
I mean, it's lovely. I mean, I do find Ireland. apart from the weather, it's beautiful, isn't it?
The weather, I would say, is pretty similar to what you get in the UK. Okay, maybe there's more rain because, especially on the west coast, because I mean, there's nothing to protect Ireland. You have all these rain clouds coming in, and the first thing they see is Sligo, and they go, "Okay, here we go." They dump the rain down, and by the time the rain clouds get to Dublin, um, yeah, there's not so much rain left.
Well, if you listen to a bit of the podcast with Rory, I talk about when I went on holiday to Westport one time, and we had the horizontal rain bashing at the "Welcome to Westport" sign as we entered. It was like,
Yeah.
great, looking forward to this holiday. But the sea, it was fantastic out there. Just get your jackets on and get going, really. But
Exactly.
yes, like, so how far would Sligo actually be from Enniskillen then?
Not far. I'm not exactly sure in terms of kilometers, maybe
Yeah.
70 kilometers or something. But
Okay.
yeah, like an hour's drive. And it's fairly pleasant. Pass through Leitrim, Donegal, and then you're in Enniskillen. Been there many times. It was a really nice sports centre there, and
Oh yes.
the town centre in Enniskillen is lovely.
Yes,
Uh,
I've been for a swim in that pool there at the leisure centre, and
yeah,
in
it's
fact,
lovely.
I'm looking at a picture now on the wall. We have a picture of the castle there,
Mm,
um, in the centre of Enniskillen with snow around Loch Earn.
yeah,
Um,
it's really
but
lovely.
I've been up to Donegal,
Hmm.
so there's a castle there, isn't there? And I'm trying to remember the name of the place everyone goes to on the beach now, where an area where they all go surfing, up
Oh,
past Donegal.
Mullaghmore? No.
No, no, my brain's gone. I can't remember the name of it at all. So yeah, so you go back every year. So
Mm-hmm.
family's still there then, yeah.
My mum lives in Sligo still, and my
Mm,
brother lives in Limerick. So usually, when I fly into Dublin, and then I rent a car and I drive directly. I just boom out the door, hop in the car, drive the whole way to Sligo. It takes 2 or 3 hours, and then usually my brother is already there, or he will arrive down quite quickly, and I'm there for a week usually. So usually I go back at least for 1 week every year. Sometimes I go back twice. So
right.
this year is the exception.
Yeah,
Haven't been
yeah.
at all.
And I think I've just remembered the name of the place now. Rossnowler.
Yes, I remember Rosnala. Yeah,
Yes, yes. The only place I know where they all park up on the beach and have no no respect for the beach at all. They all just
yeah,
pile in there. There's
yeah,
a Smuggler's Cove pub or something at the top where you go and
yeah.
have a bit of bite to eat. Rossnowler,
I've
yeah.
been there. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Um, yeah, it's a place that I've not been to for a while actually, Arlen, because
Mm,
mum and dad have passed on now, so
hmm.
we're not out there as much as we used to be, but we were out there pretty frequently. I think the first time in the 90s, that was the first time I went over to Ireland, and we did a bit of a tour. We went to Dingle. We did the Ring of Kerry on bicycles, which we hadn't been cycling at all,
Mm.
really, and that just seemed to be uphill the whole way. And you always find some Irish pub where Tom Cruise has been as well. There's always a picture of a landlord with Tom Cruise. So he'd been in this pub in the middle of nowhere.
Mm.
But yeah, fond memories, and eating lots of potatoes, nice potatoes with meals.
Yeah.
Um,
I love Ireland. I mean, I'm Irish. I don't sound very Irish, but I was born there, and that's my roots. And I do go back every year, and uh, I like it. It's nice.
well, the Irish twang's still there a bit now. I think with myself, I mean, I'm from Yorkshire, and there's still a bit of the Yorkshire twang in there, and
Mm.
I don't think we can escape it. But when I do go home, I slip back into it a little bit, and it just doesn't sound right. When as a kid, it was like I had quite a thick accent, but you
Hmm.
lose it over time. So out
Yeah.
in Africa, then you were there for 7 years. So what
Yes.
you had a great time growing up. So what was that? Lots of freedom to roam and lots of open space.
Well, it was great in the way that it taught me to really enjoy good weather. So, I mean, we lived in Kitwe in Zambia, which is on the Copper Belt, and it's just below the equator. And The weather there was just amazing. It was somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees every day, which sounds really hot, but there was no humidity. So it was dry heat, and so it was very pleasant. And we had a swimming pool in our back garden, so you go to school and hang out with the kids and have fun there, and then go home and swim in the pool. And it was a very healthy uh, childhood, and got to see lots of things. Going on safari, seeing hippos and elephants and lions, and just really, really thrilling. You
Yeah,
know,
a great experience for a
yes,
kid growing up,
I've got
that, isn't it?
so many memories of growing up in Africa. Beautiful, beautiful
Yeah,
place.
yeah. And having a pool at your house as well. Great.
Yeah, it was only a small pool. It was just, I mean, when you're a kid, 7 years old, even a small pool is just amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I get an opportunity once every so often when we rent somewhere out that's got a pool, and
Mm.
that's about it. So no, we've not chatted about IT yet,
Oh,
must we? Yeah, go on then. So what? So you were working with Dell. Was that your first experience with IT then?
no. Um, where did I start with IT? It's a long, long, long road back. But basically, if we go right back to the beginning of where I think my journey with IT started, it was in Africa when I was a kid. And I was at a primary school there, a mixed primary school. And it at that school, I absolutely remember seeing a monstrosity. It was literally the size of a room, and beside this thing, which I was told was a computer, were all these cards, and they were bigger than an iPhone Plus, and each card was, with holes in it and all sorts of shapes and so forth. And basically, they used these cards with the holes in them to tell the computer what to do. At least that's how I understood it. And there was hundreds and maybe even thousands of these cards, just laying around, probably used, and they've done their thing. So that I distinctly remember that, and I guess it had an impression on me. And then later on in life, when we moved back to Ireland, my father um, purchased a ZX81 computer, which is a 1K computer for me, and I actually still have it. I haven't turned it on in like 30, 40 years, but I have it.
Still
So
there.
yeah, I still have it. And it was a 1K computer, and you could type in about 10 lines of BASIC before it would crash. I mean, it was like a sort of an oversized calculator, um, but it
And that
was
is that the white one? It's like a white color, isn't
no,
it?
no,
Whitey
black.
grey.
Yeah,
Or is it black?
the ZX80, I think, was the white one. Yeah. So ZX80 came before the ZX81. Then the ZX81 was black with this little rubbery keyboard. Um, and then after that, of course, there was the Sinclair Spectrum, which I didn't get. My father got 48K. And then after that, a friend of mine got an Amstrad CPC464, which was a 64K Z80 based 4 megahertz computer. And I couldn't believe how awesome it was at the time. We were kids. He had it, and I would go over to his house and we'd play games for hours on end. And basically, that's all we did with it was to play games. So I was really jealous. I wanted one, but I never managed to get one for a few years until a couple of years later. Um, Amstrad released one called the Amstrad CPC6128, which was way better. So I was happy about that. So it had 128K of RAM, which of course is nothing by today's standards. And it had a floppy disk drive, a 3-inch floppy disk drive. So it was Amstrad's um, tour de force. And it was amazing. And I learned how to program on that computer, first in BASIC. And then I learned how to hack games, bought all sorts of tools and ROMs that would allow me to freeze games mid game. And then I could disassemble the game and find out where I could poke values to either give infinite lives or, do things like redesign the game, redesign
Oh yeah.
maps, and so forth. So I started getting heavily into hacking games and getting published. So I was published 14 times in magazines back in the late 80s
Mm.
for these Amstrad CPCs. And that had a
Oh.
lasting impression on me because I enjoyed, first of all, the challenge of hacking a game and solving how to make it easier to play, even more so than playing the game, which is kind of bizarre. But I also enjoyed walking down to the newsagent to see when the magazine was published, and
I'm
then
losing you a bit.
feverishly opening the magazine to see, okay, was I in it, right? Was I published that month?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that gave me a lot of inspiration to keep at it. So I did.
Yeah. Name in
So that's how I
lights.
started. That's how I started out with computers, basically. Teaching myself Z80 assembly language,
Eh,
programming in that. Yeah, you still there?
oh, sorry, I lost you a couple of times there.
Sorry.
You there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, I've just had a quick. Yeah, it just broke up slightly a couple of times there. Right.
Okay.
Okay. So you get your name published. You get your name published in the magazines.
Hmm.
Did you get any kind of little prizes for that, or is it just get your name in
No.
there? There's no
Oh
like, oh,
well,
here's a
actually,
reward.
yeah. I mean, the reward was they probably sent you the game of the month or something, which in itself was good because now you got a new game for free that you could try and hack. And that was the way I looked at it. I never really bought
Yeah.
games to play them. There was only one or two games that I really enjoyed playing, like Spin Dizzy and Jet Set Willy 2, and maybe Sorcery. But for
Oh
me
yeah.
at the time, the excitement was: can I figure out how to hack this game, or can I break the loader, the encryption that is loading this game? And I found all that really much more interesting than the
Yeah.
game itself, which is bizarre, but that's what I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it hasn't even
And so
stopped
is
there
this
because,
the computer that?
yeah,
Oh, go on, carry on.
yeah, it hasn't stopped there because that Amstrad CPC, you know, time in my life, which was the late 80s, 88 or so, 89, I moved on and I moved away from those devices onto PCs, and I went in different direction. I started off thinking that I was going to be a web designer, designing web pages, because back then the internet was really just starting to happen. And of course, everyone wanted a website. And so, web designers at that time were in big demand. So I thought, oh, okay, great. I've created a few little pathetic websites in GeoCities at the time. So I thought I could make my fortune on designing websites. So, uh, so actually, that is where my nick, if you want to call it that, of AnyWeb, that's where it comes from. I decided I need a name, and the name is going to be AnyWeb, and what it stood for at that time was any website you want, right? So, so that's so basically, I tried that for a couple of months, designing websites for companies, and maybe I was too gullible because I would take on a an order, and they'd say we want this, and they'd initially start with 5 pages, help about so on, and this is what we do, and this is what we sell, and these are really simple websites. But the thing is, I would do those 5 pages exactly the way they wanted. Then I'd bring it back to them and say, "Here you go." And then they go, "Yeah, well, we want it this way instead, and we want this, and we want that." Before I knew it, I was spending months on something that should have been done in, a week max, and still getting the same price. So yeah, I wasn't good at doing deals back then, and I gave up on that idea, and I decided to go into the support arena instead. So yeah, I mean, I worked as a
So
support
when were
person.
you doing the websites then? Now?
I mean, it must have been early 90s, early 90s, yeah, early to mid 90s.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's really early on, isn't it? In the old internet
Yeah, I mean,
sort
it
of
was,
timeline.
yeah, it was a long time ago. And then, I mean, I got my first real, I had some jobs working as IT support, an IT technician supporting Novell networks. I was Novell Network certified, so I even got, certified dealing with Windows for Workgroups. Oh my God, it was horrible back then. I mean, we had these, those network cables, coaxial network cables, and if someone tripped over one of those cables, the whole network would go down, and then we'd have to, you know, in a building with 3 floors, you'd have to go around to every computer to see what was the cable snapped, who's disconnected it or whatever. It was a nightmare back then. Um, so
I
then,
remember
then
those
I
days. Was that
moved.
on Token Ring? Was it?
Yeah, could have been. I can't remember, but it was Novell Network with those coaxial cables, and if one got
Yeah,
disconnected, the whole network was down. And
I remember. Yeah, horrible.
yeah, and it was Word Perfect. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah. We were talking to Mike Marable about this.
Hmm.
He used to support WordPerfect, and they used to support people who copied the discs and everything. It's
Yeah,
like we've just copied this, and how do we make this work? And he had to just support them. It's a different world back then, wasn't it? Really?
totally different. I mean, Word Perfect 5.1 was the big thing. Windows for Workgroups was the OS. And I was still designing then, but not websites. Now I was designing company brochures. So I was designing company brochures for the marketing department of this recruitment agency in Dublin for 2 years, and that was before I joined Dell. So I was doing a lot of design work as well as supporting the Novell network and general Windows troubleshooting. It was a very interesting time for sure, but things would really change when I joined Dell. Um, yeah. So when I joined Dell, I started as a bottom of the ladder support technician taking phone calls from the UK market. And around the time I joined, of course, Windows 95 was out, so we were supporting Windows 95. We were supporting mobile workforce, so it was dial-up with PCMCIA modems. I mean, it was oof, yeah, it was so different back then. I mean, kids of today have no idea how hard we had it. I mean,
Yeah.
a
Well,
33.
when
I remember.
plug and play came in, do you remember? We were
Yeah,
like, oh my god, we can plug something in and it's been detected.
yes, but also I remember, thinking a 33.6K dial-up modem was good, and
Yeah,
then 56K. Ooh, that was amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Times have certainly changed. Yeah, like you say, the kids these days don't realize. I think I'm sure I've seen a YouTube video of kids trying stuff out from back in the day,
Yes, I've seen them.
and they're just like, "What the hell is this?" I mean, even the fact that going back to the games days with your Amstrad, or I suppose your Amstrad you said was floppy disk, but
Hmm.
before that with your Spectrum days and Commodore 64 and loading everything off cassette, and we'd load the tape, wouldn't we, for
Yes.
5-10 minutes, wait for the game to load up,
Mm,
only to find that when you finally got the game going, it was absolute rubbish, and you had to go
exactly.
load something else. Can you imagine what the kids waiting 10 minutes for a game
No, they
to
wouldn't.
fire up?
But I
No,
mean, times are so different. So I'm glad you mentioned the Amstrad again because I've kind of come to a stage in my life. I guess I'm so old that I'm starting to relive. Okay, well, how did I start out with computers? So I've really all of a sudden it started actually about a year and a half ago. I got this desire. I don't know. Maybe I saw something on Facebook, but I got this desire to get myself one of those computers again, the Amstrad CPC6128, because I lost mine somehow, moving from apartment to apartment. It just disappeared. No idea where it is, sadly, because I'd love to read my original code, in some of the
I'd love to have
programs
the
I wrote.
original. Yeah,
I'd love
yeah.
to just to see the comments I wrote and just, nostalgia. So anyway, I went and sourced one of those computers on eBay, and I got it. It was fantastic. And then I started to buy more kit and games. And now I actually have six of them. One is arriving soon, which will be the seventh. So, and I've set up a
It's
website
become an
dedicated.
obsession now.
Yes, it has, but it's also fun. I mean, there's these very lively Facebook group dedicated to the Amstrad CPC, and
CPC noob, is it?
well, it's amstrad-noob.com.
Right.
So in there, I'm going to chronicle what I'm doing with these Amstrads, and my hope in the future, when I get time, is to disassemble a disk sector editor program that I published in 1988 in Z80. And what I want to do is take that entire program, disassemble it, provide the source code for others, and also I want to add my own comments to it, and maybe take that program and write a new version of it for today. And you might think that's really crazy, but guess what? I'm not the only one that's still thinking about doing this stuff. There are game programmers today producing games for these old 8-bit computers today. It's unreal. I mean, there's a huge interest in those computers, and when they come up on eBay, boom, they're gone very quickly as well.
So what kind of price are you paying for one of those Amstrads?
It depends on which Amstrad you get, because there are different models and some are rare. But also it depends on the condition and what does it come with, like original boxes, original manual. But generally, for a 6128, which was the first one I got, you could pick one up for around 100 euros, no problem, even including the monitor. But then you have to add shipping and stuff because I'm living in Sweden, so they're gonna have to pay for shipping. And but if you want to get one of the rarer models like the Amstrad CPC664 or the Spanish version of the 464, which is the 472, then you will be paying minimum of about 200 250 euros minimum, and I've seen them go up to 600 or more. Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I mean, because I follow a lot of the retro computing Twitter accounts
Hmm.
as well, because my interest is in the old Commodore Amiga, and I've still got my original Amiga, but I don't plug it in because I I don't know what to plug it into. So I started looking into that a little bit because with the Amstrad, you buy the
Yeah.
screen as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So unless I go out and buy an old school TV
Mm.
with the ability to connect in, then it's going to be a struggle. Um, but all the little, well, I say all of them. There's a bunch of discs I've got, and there's some where we did some music stuff, myself and
Hmm.
a friend at university. Some of those are missing, so where we did a couple of tracks together, lost forever. I think my dad had recorded over one of them with save games on some I think he used to play submarine games on my Amiga when I kind of went from uni. I left it with him for a
Mm.
bit, and he wrote over the discs. Just like,
Oof.
Dad, what are you doing? Lost forever.
Yeah.
Um, but it's great, and I mean, I do the emulation on the Raspberry Pi,
Mm.
but I've been looking at this thing called a Mister. I don't know if you've
Okay.
seen that.
What's that?
Um, well, I don't know much about it yet. I've just saw it the other day, but they're not emulating hardware. They're actually you have like a board, and
Mm.
then I think they've got different boards that you plug onto it for different types of computers.
Okay.
So they've got like an Amiga one, they've got a Spectrum one, a Game Boy one. So rather than doing software emulation, I think it's doing hardware
Hmm.
emulation or something like that. So, like I say, I've not looked into it, but this seems to be the big thing at the minute, where they're a lot of the nostalgia people are testing this out
Mm.
and trialing it out. So I wonder if they've got kind of an Amstrad thing, but it'd be great if I could get that and just plug in all the peripherals straight into. I mean, it's not the same as having the original, is it? But
It's,
you've
yeah,
got
that's the
that.
thing. I mean, before I bought my first Amstrad, in 2018 um, to get back into the retro feeling. I did try emulators, absolutely, that run on Windows, and they gave some feeling, but until you actually have the physical product in front of you with an old style monitor, I mean that it just brings it all back, the feeling. And I've even played some games with my youngest son, and he was impressed with the games, and I was impressed that he was impressed. And even I was impressed at the speed of the games because they're running on 8 bits, you know. It's just incredible. 8-bit computer.
Yeah,
What
but
they
some of
could
the
do.
characters are flying around the screen, aren't
Yeah,
they? Getting all the different components and sprites to work and work at speed takes some doing.
I mean, I think that more people should be exposed to what these old computers were doing back in the 80s because then they would truly appreciate what we have today. Because what we have today is just so different, so much more advanced.
But I mean, so when I have emulated, and I've emulated the Amiga,
Mm,
I'll plug in a keyboard and a mouse, and the keyboard's just because it's a Windows keyboard, right? And it's just not the same. Just doesn't feel the same. Like you say, when you get the actual original hardware out,
mm,
it's a totally different experience. I mean, it looked down to little things like when I used to play Pinball Dreams and Pinball Fantasies a
yes.
lot on the Amiga.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the shift keys on the Amiga just work with it. It's like having the
Mm,
two flippers or whatever, controlling
exactly.
those. But
Yeah.
on the emulation, now a Windows keyboard, if you look at it, usually has one smaller shift key.
Mm,
Yeah, it's
that's
got
right.
one big one on one side and a smaller one. So
Yeah.
that's wrong. It doesn't. You can't do it. Normally you'd have about two or three fingers whacking the shift keys on the Amiga.
Mm,
Just little things like that just make a difference.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I used to do the Raspberry Pi events, and I'd take down the Retro Pi, which is
mm-hmm.
an emulation, different cores running on it, so you could fire up Super Mario Karts. You could flip it over to an Amiga game or whatever, and the kids just love it. It's simplicity of gameplay in
Yeah.
some of those early games, and like you say, doing it at such speed as well and getting things to work. No, not much slowdown at times. It's pretty
But
impressive. Like
also,
you say,
yeah, but also you're not being distracted by reality, the reality of today's games. You know, I mean, I just got Microsoft Flight Simulator just to try it out, and I loaded it up after downloading the 100 gigs, and which I mean, 100 gigs is just insane. But yeah, that's games today. Um, thank God for broadband. But basically, when it loaded up eventually, yeah, I was quite impressed with the graphics. But I mean, if you compare those sort of photorealistic graphics to games on an Amstrad CPC from the late 80s, there's just no comparison at all. It's a completely different world. Do you know what I mean? And because it's a completely different world, that's what I like about it. It's that
but
oh,
also wasn't that part of the fun that
innocent.
we used
Do you
to
know what I
say?
mean?
Oh yeah, but when, we'd always go, wow. Even back in the day, we'd say this looks so realistic.
Mm,
you know, on games that obviously weren't.
yeah.
But at the time, you were like blown away by it, weren't you?
Mm,
Obviously, maybe not some of the vector graphics games and stuff like that, but some of the things I mean, we used to play Formula One on the Amiga. We were like, wow, this is just like driving a car around Monaco. It's like,
yeah.
look at it now, it's like dreadful. But the gameplay was what consumed you. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, how long did you stick with that new flight simulator game for? How long did you play it for? Did you just kind of turn it on and go, oh yeah, it looks nice?
well,
No, I'm not.
well, like I said, I just got it this week, and the first evening was literally just downloading that 100 gigs, and it was late at night, so I just started up the game and played it literally for like 10, 15 minutes, and then crashed the Cessna twice. So I said, okay, I'm gonna look into this properly on the weekend. So I haven't touched it since, but I will. You know, just go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because I don't play games like I used to do. I've not touched games for a long time, really. It's just one of those things where if I see a game now, they seem quite complex
Mm.
in their setup
Mm-hmm.
compared to what a simple game would have been in the past. I can quickly hop onto a platformer and
Mm.
play that in no time, start to solve puzzles as I go along. If I'm
Mm.
confronted with an open-ended um, first-person shooter or whatever, I'm just and also first-person shooters just bore me as well because it's just the same thing like with different genre, different scenario.
Yeah.
It's I kind of just go, oh yeah, I've done that, and yeah, I'm not really bothered now. So they just don't hook me in the same way.
Mm.
But now I'm sure there's games out there that are good, and I mean, some dangerously addictive as well. But I don't know. Maybe I've just grown up and got bored of them.
Mm.
Possibly is one of the things. I do like a good puzzle game though, something that's going to tax me, make me think a bit.
Mm.
But I keep revisiting old games as well. Sort of talk about emulation. I turned on Lemmings the
Oh,
other day to
Lemmings.
show
Yeah, I
him.
remember that one.
Yeah, do you remember? Oh, it's a cracker. And I was saying to my eldest, "Oh yeah, so there's one guy who's like a blocker, and he stops people moving. There's another
Mm.
one
Blows
where
up. Yeah.
yeah, blows up. Another one who builds steps up and all this." And he was like, "Yeah, okay," trying to understand what the game was all about. So I said, "Right, let's show you on YouTube." And he was like, "Oh, okay." So I thought, right, I'm gonna have a crack at that.
Mm.
Those little puzzle things, and it's simple. And it doesn't consume all loads of time because time can fly, can't it, when you're on those things?
Yeah, but it's also a nice escape from reality to play a game every so often. So uh, I want to try doing a little bit more of that now. To just spend half an hour playing a game. I mean, I I, I built I bought an old Dell computer, Optiplex 9020 i7. Um, and what I did was I basically turned it into a gaming machine, even though it's old. And then I
Yeah.
blogged about it.
Again, I think you blogged this as well, haven't you? Something I've
Yeah,
seen pictures of.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's lots of things I like to blog. Maybe I'll start blogging how to build decks next.
So that thing's complete, is it? That machine that you built.
Yeah, yeah. That's the one that I'm running the Microsoft Flight Simulator on. So yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
I've not had a desktop for ages. Is that the first one you'd had in a while?
Now I did have one, but it was really crap. Uh, so I was happy to replace that one with this one, so that I could play the occasional multiplayer game with my kids. You know.
I think it wouldn't. I don't think we can do this podcast now without asking you about
Mm.
the MVP side of things, right? Because I know you've been on board now. It's 10th year, isn't it? I think
Yeah,
this year you've got
10
you got your
years.
10th year little dinky thing that goes on
Hmm.
the award stack or whatever. And so I think people will be interested to hear maybe how that all came about originally. How you got going in that because obviously Windows Noob's been around for considerable amount of time, and it was one of the things that I used when I got going with SCCM back in the day.
Yeah. So back in the day, funny that you mention it, windowsnoob.com. I started that site out originally not to become an MVP. I just started it out because at the time, I wanted to document things I was doing and learning about SCCM 2007 and even SMS 2003 at the time. So I started blogging stuff like that because when I searched for information, I couldn't find step by step guides for doing anything. And the only step by step guides I could find were behind a paywall. You'd have to pay to get them. And I wasn't going to do that. So I figured, okay, I'll figure it out myself and then I'll write a guide. And I was literally writing the guides for myself, and they just started to get very popular. And so I kept on doing it, and I enjoyed doing it. And over time, um, actually, Jason Sandys, of all people, contacted me and said, I want to nominate you to be an MVP. And I was, oh, really? So I thought that was amazing. And he did. He nominated me, and I got it 2010, which is like 10 years ago. And I've been at it ever since. So as you know, it's a lot of work. I mean, we have to. There's a lot of feedback which we provide to the product group on internal aliases. We do a lot of testing. Technical preview stuff and in tune and finding bugs and then reporting them back to Microsoft. But it's really enjoyable. I really enjoy being part of that community, both the public community and the internal MVP community, because it's two separate communities.
Yeah, and you've got the forum, haven't you, on Windows Noob?
Yeah, it's a forum, and of course, I also have niallbrady.com, which is a WordPress site which I blog on a lot. Uh, Basically, because I find WordPress very easy to just fire up a blog, start writing about something. Uh, in a way, I find it easier to write there than writing on the forums. But a lot of the step-by-step guides I do on windowsnoob.com, and then other blogging stuff I'll do on niallbrady.com.
So how long had you been doing the blog before you got nominated then?
I guess maybe 2 years, 2.5 years. I was blogging my stuff, and it was gaining in popularity. And I would like to say I was one of the first people to really write step-by-step guides with screenshots. Because back then, no one was doing it except for maybe one company that was charging for it. Um, so it was behind a paywall, and I was offering it for free. So people could just come there, read the guides, ask stupid questions, and go away happy. So I think that contributed to the success of WindowsNoob.com, and also to helping me become an MVP.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of these things where you're talking about the change, you know, over time and looking back at how things were. Because really, as you say, there was nothing around at that time,
Very little, but
and that's
now,
only 10 years ago. Now
but
look at it.
now it's the total opposite. So now, of course, everyone has internet. Everyone has good internet. Everyone knows what everyone else wants. So everyone's doing their own version of step-by-step guides, basically. So
Yeah, which
yeah,
which is great. I mean, there's a lot of things you can find. I mean, my thing is always to refer to the Microsoft documentation.
yeah.
But step by steps are great. I mean, I create them myself, and in
Hmm.
fact, I think my SCCM install blog, step by step, is one of the still the big hitters, and that's for 2012 install. It's still relevant.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's those things that I like to mix up between step by steps and tips and fixes and things like that because
exactly.
um, you know
Experiences.
yeah, exactly what goes wrong and that, and then also step by steps are becoming tricky to keep relevant in a way because of the rapid change in the product itself.
Yes, it's changing so fast now that uh, unless you really refer to this was done on this version on this day, like technical preview. I mean, it changes every month, so and sometimes twice a month.
Yeah,
So
it's almost like what we were saying about Intune blogs
mhm,
before, because the Intune, I mean, even the portal changes so much as well that what you've
yeah,
screenshot is no longer relevant. There's almost that feel happening in Config Manager itself as well. And I mean, I know you've done focused a lot on MBAM recently,
hmm,
and the BitLocker integration of MBAM
yeah,
to Config Manager. So I did one when it just got released with TP.
hmm,
It's still relevant, but it's still out of date because I think that original TP didn't have any self-service portal and things like that. That kind of came
mm,
later. So
yeah,
yeah, it's one of those things where you go, it changes so rapidly. It's good to have stuff out there to refer to, and lots of people getting involved. And the more, the merrier, really, because
exactly.
it helps everyone out ultimately, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
But it can be information overload as well at the same time. There's so much stuff out there.
exactly.
I mean, do you find at times, it's tricky to keep up with the
Yep,
the whole product? Yeah,
yeah, of course. And I mean, because we've done many sessions together ourselves, that it is hard to keep up. But the best way to do it is to do labs, and either go through it yourself or go through it with someone you enjoy doing that with, which is why I've done so many of those types of labs with you, because it's been enjoyable, you know.
Yeah, we learnt quite a lot from those experiences for sure. Definitely. Well, Noel, appreciate you taking time out tonight to chat to me on this, as I say, the last episode of this series of just a couple of jerks.
No problem. My pleasure, Paul.
That's cool. Got to know you a little bit more.
Hmm.
And if people want to get in touch with you, could you just want to fire out your Twitter handle and any way they can contact you?
Absolutely. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me for whatever reason, they can find me on Twitter. My handle is at @ncbrady. That's N for Niall, C for Christopher, and BR80Y, Brady. And of course, you can find me at windowsnoob.com, or you can email me, niall at windows-noob.com, or even niall at windowsnoob.com. Either.
They all work.
Yeah,
Lovely. No, it's been a real pleasure chatting to you, and so thanks for taking part once again.
no problem. Likewise, Paul. See ya.